Hi LinkedIn, me again. So again, as part of the what we're trying to do is give other people a chance to talk on our channel or page, whatever you want to call it. So today's video is actually with the people who we are partnered up with to try and help us get closer to net zero, and what we're trying to do with regards to helping both our own business and our suppliers reduce their carbon consumption. So we teamed up with the guys at Net Zero Nation. So I've got Tabby on the video here from Net Zero Nation. Tabby will tell you a wee bit more about Net Zero Nation, the accelerator that we're part of, and other parts of what these guys are doing, because they're doing a fantastic job in trying to help businesses get towards net zero and trying to help change the mindset out there. But I'm going to give you a quick introduction to why we're part of it. So as a business, helping reduce carbon consumption is a huge part of what we do. And that's why we invested in some of the technologies that we have, so as we can help both ourselves and our clients try and reduce carbon consumption as much as possible. So try to help. It's all about people, planet, profit. So there's loads and loads of wasted energy in the industrial market sectors that we work in. So what we're doing is we're trying to look at all the different ways possible to try and reduce that as much as we can. And we then get in touch with Tabby and Gavin, the guys at Net Zero Nation, and we're saying, right, how can we do this a bit more strategically? And from that, we then joined up with, I think we were one of the first cohorts, weren't we, Tabby?
You were, yes.
So one of the first cohorts of the Net Zero Nation Accelerator Programme, which has been fantastic, which helps bring us as a business on a journey to help our own carbon consumption and help us get our ESG scoring, but also gave us huge amounts of information on how we can then take that to the big bad world and help others to focus on it as well. So yeah, so that's why we're doing it, and it's been fantastic so far. So the program and the accelerator has been great, and we've learned so much from it. So that's my little bit done, Tabby. So over to you. Let's tell the LinkedIn world about the accelerator and the great work that you guys are doing there.
Thank you very much. So I'll start by sharing just a little bit about Net Zero Nation because we're still an early stage company. We were founded in July 2021, and our mission is to mass mobilise the 364,000 Scottish SMEs to net zero. Now, the reason that we have this mission is that SMEs account for about 47% of Scotland's turnover. The narrative on climate change is highly dominated at times by government, by corporations, and SMEs feel that they're only one small business. What change can they do? Well, if you mass mobilise SMEs, bring them together in a community, amplify their voice, allow them to have credible carbon benchmarking and plans, that helps them drive the agenda forward. And actually, for me, SMEs are critical to our transition because they're embedded in local communities, they're more liable to employ people, give back. You know, the greatest amount of growth and employment is going to come from the SME sector over the next 10 years. So it's critical that we actually get them mobilised on Net Zero Nation. We're a company limited by guarantee because we didn't actually want to profit from climate change. What we wanted to do was reinvest any surplus back into projects that could actually help accelerate us towards the journey of net zero. So since our launch in July 2021, we spent a lot of time speaking to the SME community to find out what they were needing, really identifying their needs. And basically, we found out that SMEs are time poor and finance poor, which will not come as a surprise to a lot of people there. So how do you make net zero a cost-effective journey? And that's really what we set out to do with the Net Zero Accelerator, Jamie. Now, as you know, one of the unique things about the Net Zero Accelerator is that it reduces the cost by putting you in a cohort of 10 other SMEs or 6 to 10 other SMEs. The reason for this is that we found out that SMEs want to learn from other SMEs about what works and what doesn't work on their journey to net zero. There's also a huge drive in terms of how do you actually do business with like-minded individuals? So by building relationships in a group approach, you're able to identify commercial opportunities and move the journey forward. Now, The Net Zero Accelerator focuses around a managed carbon or net zero journey. And I just want to clarify for the audience, what exactly do we mean by net zero? Because sometimes people don't actually know, and there's a lot of confusion in terms. So we hear carbon neutral bandied about quite a lot. All that means is you've been able to actually offset your carbon by planting trees or doing something like that, but you haven't actually mitigated any carbon. Mitigated means removing it from your business. Offset means kind of like offloading it and putting it somewhere else. So net zero is about actually reducing 90% of your emissions or mitigating them and then offsetting the other 10. And that's really what we're focused on. How do you remove carbon from your business? So in the group cohort, how we approach it is through we call it the 5 M's because it's catchy to actually remember this. But it's hugely important that first of all, you start actually mastering net zero, understanding the fundamentals. What is net zero? What isn't? What's carbon neutral? The difference between net zero. Because once you have an understanding and kind of get rid of all the complicated language and simplify it down, that gives you the ability to understand how best to approach it within your business. From then, you need to start measuring it. Now, best practice in terms of measuring it, and because you've been through this, so I mean, you can share a bit of your experience here, is gathering the necessary data to do a carbon benchmark, to actually know how much carbon is within your business, so that from that, you've got the data that can help drive better decision makings, create a carbon plan that allows you to reduce your carbon emissions. And that's kind of like step 3, the manage part of, okay, what is that carbon plan? One of the things that's really fascinating in terms of the more SMEs that we speak to, a lot of them are already doing stuff that's considered net zero. They're just not aware of it, because fundamentally, net zero is about how do you have the most efficient business that uses the less waste or produces the less waste and makes optimal use of its resources. So there's a huge cost saving benefit here, as any SME knows. We're figuring out ways of how to drive costs down. This is what net zero does by eliminating the waste. And the number of SMEs, for example, I was at a workshop today, and one of the takeaways from one of the SMEs that attended was, we're actually further on our journey than we think because we're doing all this stuff. We just haven't formalised it, and they could already see that they had a carbon plan, but it just wasn't written down. So we go, that's the first 3 points. Master your understanding of carbon, measure it, manage it by creating a carbon plan. Now, the next step is actually the most important, as you can appreciate. It's how do you then monetize it? There's 2 huge opportunities within net zero at this precise moment, Jamie, which is there is the competitive element. More and more people want to buy low carbon products. How do you actually put yourself in front of them by letting them know about your carbon credentials? So not only can you be more competitive in terms of attracting new clients, but it can also relate to tenders. More and more tenders are actually looking for your net zero credentials, and that kind of shifts into the compliance factor. There are more and more requirements coming in for companies that if you want to stay ahead of the pack, you need to be able to actually show what's going on carbon wise. But that capacity to commercialize it, we're all businesses, we need to make it financially sustainable. That's a huge, huge priority of integrating it into your brand, integrate it in your sales. Exactly what you're doing right now with this video, Jamie, of being able to showcase, right, I'm on this journey. This is why I'm on the journey. This is why I'm actually even promoting Net Zero Nation in the first place, because I believe that Net Zero Nation will make my business stronger and I want to spread the message. So, we're actually displaying step 4 of the process really beautifully here. And then step 5 is fundamentally how do you maintain it? Now, most people think carbon reduction is a straight downhill curve. It's more kind of like going up and down a range of mountains all the way down to the bottom, because you're growing your business at the same time that you're trying to reduce your carbon emissions. So fundamentally, that means we've got to look at the intensity of the carbon that's being used. How much carbon's being used in your business, say, for the amount of employees you've got or the amount of office space that you've got. And this is actually a circular approach, because once you actually maintain, your carbon reduction, you're still going back into, am I mastering it? Am I up to date with all the latest information? Am I still measuring it accurately? Is there anything else that I can measure? What else can I do to actually manage it and create a different carbon plan once I tick off all the quick wins? How can I continue to monetize it and then go back into maintain? And this is essentially what we do in the Net Zero Accelerator, Jamie. It's a cost effective, time effective solution for SMEs to come to learn together, to take practical, tangible action to achieve net zero and be able to show the world that this is what they're doing, not just by saying that they're doing it, but by getting that carbon benchmark. We get it independently audited, which means a third party reviews not just the carbon benchmark, but also the carbon reduction plan to say, yes, this is consistent with industry standards. This all makes sense. It's in line with the science-based targets and the streamlined energy and carbon reporting, which are key parts of legislation that need to be embedded within businesses. And then that gives you the certification and the confidence to go to the world and say, yes, this is what we're doing. And this is the evidence that shows how we're doing it in a credible and compelling manner.
Brilliant. Thank you. That was brilliant, Tabby. You'd think
Oh,
you'd said that before.
you're welcome. The more I practice, the better I get.
Yeah. No, and for me, some of the kind of things that you said there, businesses, we've had this conversation. I mean, you know that I've been a big advocate of net zero and wanting to try and make a difference. But you're also still trying to run a business. You still need to try and bring in profit. People's time is money. All the rest of
Mm-hmm.
these things, and and it's sometimes you need to just take a little step back from the daytime to go,
Mm-hmm.
right, what does the future look like for my business, and
Exactly.
how do I, so if I want my future to look like we have less carbon in our business, then you have to do something about it. There is a lot of there's a lot, and we've spoke about this, and I'm happy to share it on LinkedIn. That there's a lot of people out there that tick boxes,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you're not doing anything. They're not helping anything, right? All they're doing is just masking their problems, right? So if you've got something within your business that is a contributor, whether it's net zero, whether it's an issue with a product, whether it's an issue with a service, right? You need to put it on the table and fix it,
Mm-hmm.
because it will eventually come back and bite in the backside. And unfortunately, with the net zero and the carbon consumption in the world, that's going to come back and bite us in the backside very soon, and to a very, very bad extent. So um, I just hope that more people take up the opportunity to join one of the accelerator cohorts, because I think well, I know that they'll see real value in it, both for what they're doing with their own business, but commercially going forward. I mean, we've spoke about this as well, where we're getting involved with most of the global type organisations. Sustainability's went from being 2% of a decision making process now up to 20% in some of them.
Mm-hmm.
So the larger organisations are trying to drive the supply chain to become more carbon conscious of what they're doing. So I think anybody that's an SME, that's especially anyone that's looking to try and do business with larger organisations, this is coming, and
Mm-hmm.
try and get yourself in there ahead of the curve, and put yourself in a position that you can go and win these contracts, because you know, and you can stand there and you can, with with confidence, and say that you're doing the right things. Because
Yes.
before I joined the Accelerator, I knew that that's what we wanted to do. I knew that we were conscientious about it and everything else, but I couldn't prove that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now, obviously, at the end of this end of September, when we finish off our carbon benchmarking for the year after our financial year end, we can turn around and prove that. So we're not just saying we're doing the right things. We can now prove that we're doing the right things, and we can also then see if there's anything else we can do to make it better.
Yeah, and that is so true. There's been so much greenwashing over the past 10 years, 20 years, that people are skeptical in net zero. It's compounded by the fact that some of the language is completely confusing, which makes you feel actually like an idiot, and you don't want to put your hand up and say, I don't understand, because everybody else is nodding their head, which really means that nobody else understands either.
Yeah.
But you know, you want the evidence that says this is what I'm doing, because people are looking for it, and the more that you do it, the benefits are just so important. And that point of what you're saying there, that it comes back to bite you in the bum, we all want the most resource efficient businesses going. Well, that's all that net zero really is. And problem solving within a business in the daily operations is really about how do you streamline everything to make it that efficient. And, you know, it I sit and think that when you demystify it and take away all the bullshit, and I probably shouldn't say that because it's LinkedIn, um, but when you take away all of that, it's not that difficult. It's actually common sense. We want to do it. And one of the things that I love when I have conversations is people always come up with stories of their grandparents and how resource efficient their grandparents were going back to the 40s, 50s, after the war. That's what we want to get back to. Let's not use anything. Let's actually recycle everything, turn it into new things, upcycle, and that growing trend is coming. We're still at the early adoption phase, and it's exciting because if you get on it now, it becomes an easier journey. Whereas if you turn around and say, oh, I'll deal with it in 2029 when 2030 comes, we've got a 50% target or reducing our emissions by 50% in the UK by 2030. If you wait until 2029, you are going to be putting out fires and it is going to be hell. You
Yep.
really
Yep.
don't want to get there. You want to be proactive, be able to say what you're doing, and then all the legislation comes in, and you're like, well, I've already done it. By the time the carbon tax comes in, it doesn't have any impact on your business because you've already thought about it. You've made plans to mitigate the risk of climate change on your business, and as a result, you end up being more competitive, and it's easier to grow your business in a challenging climate.
100% agree. You know that I'm on board. I am a big advocate of it, and hopefully anyone that's watched this video, right, and hopefully everybody's still with us, because so each of these videos, Tabby, I've said we'll try and keep to 10 minutes long. I've not been able to keep one to 10 minutes long yet. Right, but anybody that knows me will know when they put a video up that it's not going to be short, because I do some yapping. And don't worry about the wee bad word, because everybody also knows that I swear all the time. So I'm happy enough for that to go. Uh, so
Awesome.
so no, I'm hoping that obviously that people do watch this, right, and do see the passion that comes for you guys, and hopefully from there we can get more people on the future cohorts and start helping, because this is the thing. What you guys are doing is you're helping people look into the future,
Yeah.
and why wouldn't you? So fingers crossed, and yeah, fingers crossed it can help Net Zero Nation keep moving forward into the future and helping lots of companies.
Exactly. And we've got about 9 cohorts in various stages of development. We're onboarding companies all the time. So if people are interested in finding out more information, they can just go to www.netzeronation.eco and they'll find out all the information that they need. And they can get in touch and have a chat and find out more.
Or LinkedIn troll you.
Oh, yes, LinkedIn troll us as well. We're always there on LinkedIn.
No, brilliant, Tabby. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Um, and yeah, we'll hopefully get some interest from this.
Yep, fingers crossed.